Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast. The season is over. We spent the whole season saying I can't wait for it to be over. So here we are, 1 week later, back with the first of our season reviews. So the idea is we're going to take Ipswich's 48 games and conveniently slip them into 3 blocks of 16 games. So today, I'm here with the always excellent Richard Woodward from the preview show to look at games 1 to 16 and the entirety of Mr. Paul Hurst's reign. Richard, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, how are you? You had a little bit of adventures on the motorways yesterday, getting in both playoffs games. That was impressive.
Adventures on the motorway. Well, should we talk about the playoffs quickly then, Rich? So, Villa 2, West Brom 1, Dwight Gale out of the second leg, and Derby 0, Leeds 1. So no team has ever lost at home in the first game and then overturned that deficit in the Championship. What do you make of it?
Well, it's probably, we're halfway through, aren't we? So let's not make any judgments on Wembley yet, but probably the outcomes we expected. I thought Villa were looking edgy, weren't they? A West Brom goal kind of came out of nowhere, mistake from Whelan, which you don't expect, but they didn't look good until the goal went in, and then suddenly it all flicked and turned around, and suddenly they're looking very happy. They're
Richard,
probably
it was so George Burley, that game. It was so, just imagining Jamie Clapham sticking that own goal in after 10 minutes and Charlton sticking 10 men behind the ball.
They were kicking him, weren't they, as well?
And Dean Smith playing the Burley role of, no, I'm not going to play tournament football. I'm going to do exactly what I've done all season and stick to my guns. But yeah, we didn't have Grealish, did we?
Exactly right. And he was and your thoughts on the Dwight Gale sending off? I thought it was harsh. There's it's a big decision.
Well, it depends. If the ref wrote in his report that second yellow was for persistent foul play, then it
was a bit tight.
He warned him for about 5 other things, and just a minute before he took somebody out as well. I messaged you before the game and said this smells like a shit house, and we were totally right. I mean, it's a brilliant goal by Gale to begin with, but they were so defensive, the shape after that, and Villa stuck to their guns. And is that a victory for football, Rich?
Well, yeah, maybe. I didn't think Villa were too impressive, but you've got to do what you've got to do, haven't you, in the playoffs? And talking of getting done what you need to get done after a pretty crappy end to the season, which we beat them, so that's how bad it was for them. Leeds get a pretty decent away win.
They were good.
Derby, was it Derby kind of bottled it a little bit? That's what Twitter said.
No, Leeds, they just didn't lay a glove on them. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I was thinking, what did Derby do wrong? And the only answer I could come up with was they came up against Bielsa on a good day. And what you're going to do? And it's Ellen Road sold out now, and Leeds have now beaten Derby 3 times within the season. Are Derby really going to go there and win? I know you'll tell me, well, Sheffield United went there and won, and Norwich went there and won. Derby aren't as good as Sheffield United and Norwich.
Yeah, and I think Ellen Road is it's a big 12th man advantage to have Ellen Road, isn't it? So they've got the goal advantage. It was a decent goal for Roof as well. Lovely cross. Was it Harrison?
I just remember back to our preview show when I had a pop at Ayling and Harrison, and they both played really well. Both played really well yesterday.
And the penalty, Sky, you were there obviously. I don't know what you thought about the penalty in real time, but Sky went on about it forever. It's Higginbotham who was, it's a definite penalty. Definitely, I'm not having it. I thought it was a 50-50 coming together. No decision needed.
I don't profess to have Dave Diamond's skill at this, but on my first look, I was like, that's not a penalty. They've come together. Bogle swings at it, they bash into each other, and my argument in my match review was neither man played the ball, and either neither of them played the ball and they both fouled each other, or it wasn't kind of one or the other really.
I agree. I wasn't having a penalty for that. So Sky were loving it. Sky wanted the angle, didn't they? Wanted a talking point.
Yeah, well, Leeds were just kind of calmly controlling the game, and it wasn't chaotic enough for Sky, obviously.
And Hernandez, who we talked about in the preview show being really important, didn't have the best of games again yesterday. But
yeah, there was one moment where he played Shackleton in with just a stupid pass. So when he's on the pitch, he can still, if in a tight game, he can still do something ludicrous, like in the game against us, the pass for Ayling for the handbally looking goal. But yeah, he didn't dominate the game, but didn't need to. But yeah, I take the point that he's not dominating. But that's kind of a good thing for Leeds if they're not totally reliant on their star guy, I guess.
He'll turn up for the final, but halfway there, let's not make any judgments. But are you going to both the second? And is it the same night?
No,
Tuesday,
no.
Tuesday,
So West Brom is 8 p.m. on Tuesday, and Leeds is 7:45 on Wednesday. Yeah, I will be at both, and I will not be worth anything on Thursday morning.
No. Well, at least your Leeds jinx is over with. You'll be welcomed with open arms to Ellen Road now. They might have kicked you out.
It's like I tripped Kamar Roof up when he was taking that penalty. I'm an unimportant football vlogger, Richard. Deary me, it wasn't my fault.
You know, football fans clutching at straws.
What it was Sheffield United fans winding up Leeds fans. Is what it was. But there you go. Rich, before we start, just quickly, a timeline of misery. Just tell us about this.
Yeah, so I thought, well, what better way to look back on a season when we've got relegated but to pinpoint every single moment where things went badly wrong for us. So we did the sliding doors video a few months back, and that was kind of more of a historic look back. This one was kind of we've taught us a lot about bits and pieces all coming together. It's kind of a jigsaw of misery rather than a timeline necessarily, because we talked about Hurst being late into his role, transfer dealings not going so well, getting rid of strikers, not bringing in good quality, injuries, results going against us. So I thought, well,
all that good stuff.
Until you, all brilliant stuff. Made it
all
happen. Yeah, exactly right. Now that's what I call a shit season. Yeah, that's volume 1. But until you see it out kind of chronologically, you can't really see it in context. So I thought, well, the whole of the summer could have gone much better, actually. We'll talk about signings and preseason results and all that kind of stuff. But once you understand that we only scored 0.08 goals per game in preseason, and then we sold our top scorer from the previous season just during August, you kind of, well, it all starts to fit together. And we're going to talk about the season with hindsight, but the evidence was stacking up there that it was going to be tough. And then it gets to a point where I think it's Leeds, and we're bottom for the rest of the season. That is it. But there are moments where you kind of think, wow, we could have got it back on track and Lambert's doing the right things, and then suddenly something else happens. So
I think what the video proved, Rich, though, is it wasn't any one thing, was it?
No, exactly right. There's definitely lots of things coming together, and it's just not worked out for us. And you look at Norwich, it's the total opposite. It's the polar opposite of all of the good things that could possibly go right for them have gone right, and we're the other side of the equation totally. So enjoy it. It's great fun.
Let's do this then. So first 16 games, but we would be remiss if we didn't go back. And I was there, Rich, at Wembley, playoff final, and it was Shrewsbury of Paul Hurst against Rotherham of Paul Warne. What would we have done if we'd hired Paul Warne instead of Paul Hurst in that playoff final? Anyway, this is all going to get very.
He's Norwich, isn't he?
He's ambitious though, isn't he? He's ambitious, but he's a bit of a Rotherham legend now, isn't he? So Shrewsbury go under to Rotherham in extra time. Richard Wood heads in a set play, and I get my first look at Omar Beckles and Dean Henderson and John Nolan and Alex Rodman and Ben Godfrey and lots of interesting players in that Shrewsbury team. So the story, as I understand, Rich, is that Hurst has already cleared his desk before the playoff final and never returns to Shrewsbury. For those people who question Hurst's character, I guess that's a tick in the box for him, or is he just ambitious? This guy's got promoted with Grimsby and Shrewsbury and seems a bit the doyen of the lower leagues. And within a week or so, am I remembering he goes away on holiday, but he's negotiating while he's on holiday?
So he's the timeline video, I think, for the playoff final, I think something like the 25th or 27th of May or something like that, right at the end of May. And I think within days, we've agreed to talk terms, and then he signs, and then he goes off on holiday. So it's done by the end of May, I think, but he doesn't start with us until maybe the second week in June. Because he also had an LMA conference or something as well. I know it's just really nonsense stuff to keep him away. But we're in June, the middle of June, before any business for the next season has kind of happened. And And just quickly on Hurst, so I've got a mate who's a Grimsby fan who was not a big fan of Paul Hurst. It took Grimsby a lot of time to get up. Had a big budget, a big-ish club in respect of the National League, and it took him, I think, 3 or 4 seasons with. He was a co-manager with someone else as well for a while, and obviously went it alone. But he was not. He was not a fan of Hurst and warned me. And when the signings started to happen into June and July, he also says, "Oh, these are kind of League One, League Two signings. These are players that will take you down rather than keep you up."
So, Rich,
I was getting early warnings, but we're all thinking a new era, aren't we? We're all excited.
well, and that was the marketing from the club as well. So, Rich, would you agree the Hurst blueprint in the lower divisions was make your players fitter than everybody else, play a kind of high intensity 4-2-3-1 or 4-1-4-1, depending on what the two centre midfielders are up to, and just very heavily sort of consistent, nothing hugely spontaneous or no
Free
kind
kicks,
of
though. There were some
tactical mastery. Yeah,
funny set pieces, weren't there?
apparently
That was
that was
about it.
Chris Doig though, wasn't it?
Was it?
From what I've heard, yeah. The Alan Nil of that, the Alan Nil to Paul Hurst, Chris Wilder. But that was the reputation we got, and Harry was very honest. I'll hold my hands up. I was like, okay, well, Mick's gone from playoffs to 7th to 16th to 12th and left, and it's like, well, let's try something else. We've had Roy Keane, who was a huge name, Paul Jewell, who'd got Evans had consistently gone for managers who'd previously got teams promoted from tier 2 to tier 1. I was well up for this. I was all over it, Rich. I was happy. What were your thoughts?
No, exactly the same. And I think we've been kind of asking for something totally different. We don't want the kind of the Gary Megsons of this world, the Alan Pardewes. There were some really iffy names linked with the vacancy. There was some kind of interesting. Shefki Kuchi threw his hat into the ring.
He threw about 5 hats into the ring.
He threw the wardrobe into the ring. I think Burley was up for it as well.
Dave said that Shefki Kuki had a head like a 50p. What would a Shefki Kuki hat look like if he's got a head like a 50p?
It's got to have a point to it, hasn't it? So maybe it's a Stetson or something, because otherwise it's falling off either side. Yeah.
Carry on. Sorry.
I've got Shefki Kuki's head in my head. So I think my pick was Warburton. I think I was quite an early supporter.
Who's just been hired by Rangers. Go QPR.
So I'm going to look on with interest at Warburton at QPR. But yeah, we want something different. We want something that's a little bit of a kind of antidote to McCarthy to an extent. And I think possibly people thought Hurst was more of a kind of footballing tactical genius than maybe he was. You're right. It was the fitness, wasn't it? That was the big thing for him. But it was energy and playing with passion that he bigged up on his interview. And to an extent, we saw that. But I don't think he gave himself enough time to properly embed that. And then obviously, spoiler alert, by the end of this segment, he's on his ear, he's out, isn't he?
Well, Rich, I think it sounds like Evans was sold on Hurst. And I can imagine Hurst in the interview convincing Evans of all the value there was in the lower divisions, and I can get you good players for less. And I think Dave Bowden actually did that better under Mick than Hurst did, as it transpires. I think that was probably what sold Evans. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And the other, and we'll come back to we'll talk about the kind of the big marquee signings, because it does feel like Hurst got a bit of money and kind of did kind of Football Manager kind of, I've got a £5 million budget, I'm going to sign the players that I would have signed had I taken Shrewsbury up, perhaps. But the other thing that kind of starting to ring alarm bells for me with Evans is this kind of brain trust that Evans has got to kind of help him do his recruitment. We were told early on it's going to be a long, drawn-out recruitment. He's going to do a lot of due diligence. He's taken a lot of advice. And it kind of felt that there were some really good candidates in the building.
And Rich, he's had since the last international break of the 2017-18 season to get his candidate, hasn't he?
Agreed. Yeah. And if Hurst was the number one candidate, you kind of like to think it would have been done and dusted before the playoffs. If Hurst is going to do the good thing and get to the end with Shrewsbury and see them through to the playoff final, then great. But the fact that we had to wait so long is what kind of sets the chain in motion for all of this nonsense that follows. But yeah, I'm with you. I think going back to it, I think all of us were optimistic. All of us wanted to be optimistic. There were definitely blue tinted spectacles over here on Hurst. And it takes a few games, takes a month or two before that veneer starts to drop, and suddenly we're starting to get worried.
Do you want to do players in or players out first?
Should we do the players?
Let's do the outs.
Go out early.
Let's do the outs.
Out early, isn't it?
And really, this isn't as much Hurst's new approach. This is a lot to do with the end of the McCarthy era and that squad being very, very swiftly dismantled. So this squad that, for all the criticism of Mick, this squad did finish 12th, comfortably 12th, level on points with Leeds and Norwich, which is just insanity, isn't it? So, Rich, I'm going to go up from the bottom here. And I'm going to start with Josh Emmanuel goes out to Shrewsbury on loan. Tristan Nydam goes out to St Johnstone on loan. Danny Rowe goes out to Lincoln on loan. Aaron Drinan goes out to Sutton on loan. Mustafa Carayel, Stephen Gleeson, Michael Crowe and Luke Hyam are released. And Luke Wolfenden is also sent out on loan. And that's before we do the big four. So what are your views on the, quote, bombing out of all Ipswich's youngsters, particularly Tristan Nydam, and fact check me on this, must have appeared in 20 championship games the previous season.
Something like that. Yeah. At least it's sub at or start. Yeah, I think Wolfenden and Nydam were the ones that I think people were a little bit peed off about. Wolfenden has a good pre-season with us, comes on against Blackburn and does really well, plays really well in West Ham in the preceding weekend as well. And I think that annoyed a few people, particularly as we were supposedly short on centre-backs. Enciala comes in eventually and makes that kind of space his own for the start of the season. But Nydam, I think the big issue with Nydam, and Dave has talked about this so much, is Nydam is kind of replaced by Teo Aiden, who is a much of a muchness, to be honest, probably a little bit more experience, maybe a little bit more pedigree coming through at Fulham, perhaps. But it did feel like it was a low move that Paul Hurst had kind of got earmarked pretty early doors. He'd got his kind of list of targets, and regardless of who else was on the books here, that was going to be
he wanted to bring
deal.
His guys in, yeah.
Exactly right. And I think, secondly, I think it just stifled Nydam. He went out to St Johnstone, I don't think hardly featured, and he set his career back half a season potentially. So I think that's worked out poorly for both of those players, and they could have probably done a job for us as well.
And it's worth mentioning, Bersant Salina goes away, and I know Mick had his run-ins with him, but when you go back under Mick, Ryan Fraser, astonishingly good player. Tom Lawrence, brilliant player at championship level, especially in a team like Ipswich where he's the top guy. Bersant Salina as well. For the 3 seasons before, we had spent money. I know Maitland-Niles didn't particularly work out, but we'd spent presumably money contributing to a loan player who was very good. So I'm going to put Bersant Salina down as a big loss, because there's no Chalobah, okay, but that's not in a goal scoring and goal assisting position like Fraser or Lawrence particularly, who dragged us through the end of the season where we finished 16th with his goals. But here are the ones.
Just quickly, I could think of 6
ahead.
points that Salina won us single-handedly. You know, the Leeds game started January.
Yeah.
Burton away, the free kick.
Yeah.
6 points right there. A single. There must be more other examples I can't think of. There were goals and there were a few assists. Yeah, he's not defensively great, and he's not ripped. He's not set the world alight at Swansea perhaps, but quality player who's going to score you a goal, who can do something different, and is different to what you've got. And I think that's the issue. We don't have Lawrence was something different, Fraser was something different than what we had. Everything kind of feels a muchness with the signings that we bring in. There's nothing there. There's no marquee standout player. There's no match winner. And again, Harry and Dave have talked about this. Who's the one person who looks through the squad or the signings and think single-handedly they could turn a game if they wanted to? There isn't that standout player there.
Adam Webster is the first to go in a deal that could raise as much as 8 million, presumably if he's promoted to the Premier League and scores 38 goals in one season or whatever crazy stuff they've put in there. Martin Waghorn is then sold to Derby. I believe he's still on the books when the season starts, but he's not involved in any of the squads. He's off ski. And then at the end of the window, Joe Garner goes out to Wigan. Transfer market quotes 5.6 million. I think these are in euros actually. 5.6 million for Waghorn, 4 million. We know there's add-ons for Webster, and 1.4 million. Sorry, they're euros. So quickly take off 20% or something off those numbers. Rich, I've been quite a proponent of XG, and the XG for our 2017-18 season had us finishing 22nd and relegated. And I think when I spoke to Blades Analytic, I asked him, because he's an expert and I'm not, what bucks XG? And he said, good goalkeepers, good set plays, and taking your chances. Wow.
Martin Waghorn. Well, apart from the goalkeeper bit. Maybe he could do a job, I never know.
But the three guys we cashed in on before we go to McGoldrick, was this just crazy short-termism? And what do you think of Hurst's role in this? And did he actually have any say in it whatsoever?
I don't know. My assumption, knowing nothing, is that Hurst was told sell to buy. And I think the Webster signing, given it was so early in the window, I'm trying to find the date for it. Was it start of July? It might have been.
Oh, it was pretty much as soon as the window reopened, wasn't it?
And I think that is entirely about bolstering the transfer kitty to bring players in. I think, I'm going to hold my hands up here along with blue tinted spectacles for being totally behind Hurst. I thought Webster, the injuries were a problem for me. It's the same with McGoldrick. I thought quality player, talented player on his day, but for us was just a bit too much of a risk in terms of being, maybe 30 games a season rather than 46 or what have you. And so I think that signing was very much about bolstering the transfer kitty, assuming that there's injuries there. He might not play a full season, so let's go for it and let's stick a load of add-ons in case we're wrong.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The Waghorn one, I think, is the one that everyone will dispute because I don't think the fee was particularly good. Waghorn is still of a decent age as well, and we were seeing players like I'm trying to remember Vidra or something like that going for 10 million. Rhodes previously going for 8 million.
The importance of that guy at the end of last
60
season.
goals, was it?
Yeah, but all the goals were either him putting a set play in for someone else or him scoring. Other than that, you talk about that Leeds game where Selena scored, we were creating nothing from pretty much the start of the 2018 calendar year if Waghorn wasn't doing it himself.
Yeah, agreed. And that's the one that I think is going to stick with a lot of people because you're going on hearsay and rumour, all that kind of stuff. Waghorn apparently wasn't too fussed about leaving. I think if we'd offered him a bumper contract and made him the highest paid player, he might have stayed. And I think as soon as Hurst got a sniff of the money, and Evans certainly, I think that deal was inevitable. And I think that is one of the key ones that has Hurst us.
And with 2020 hindsight, the bumper contract obviously went to a certain goalkeeper, didn't it? And I know hindsight is 2020, isn't it? But if that contract had gone to Waghorn and maybe Białkowski was sold to, and that would have been what put Birmingham into FFP, wouldn't it? Instead of Christian Pedersen. Wow, it's a complete madness, isn't it? But there you go. So I think we can all agree a massive load of players going out, and David Johnson said in our interview with him, you just can't do 10 in and 10 out in one go and just expect it to work. Let's talk about the players who came in.
We skipped over McGoldrick, by the way, but that's fine. Let's we don't need to dwell on that one. But
Sheffield United Player of the Year,
yeah, that
second
one.
place Sheffield United Player of the Year. I mean,
Yeah,
I think with McGoldrick, and
well done.
I'd hold my hands up, and in the same way with Mick, obviously good at their job and have done good things, but probably time to have another go elsewhere. I think everyone
Yeah,
admitted that, and a high wage earner, yeah.
yep, yeah. So I think the facts probably tell you to make one decision, given he was out of contract. And what you know now, you probably would have
Yeah,
thought differently. But there's a lot of context there that would, the travelling and commuting and all that kind of stuff. It was just all adding up, and yeah,
and
tricky
you're
situation.
probably right. He's probably been told. Right, McGoldrick is on. Let's throw a random number out. Let's throw a nice round 10 grand a week out. I think it might be more than that. And I suspect Hurst thinks he can get 3 League One players in for
Yeah,
10 grand a week, doesn't
exactly
he?
right. Yeah.
So
Same with Webster, would have been on, Waghorn as well. Garner, you can bring in players of what you would hope to be similar quality, but pay them a fraction of the price. Yeah, I think that's definitely a tactic that was they tried to deploy.
and I think the big lesson here is that 3 okay League One players are not equal to 1 very good Championship player,
Oh,
are they? There we go. Players in. Insanity. Here we go. Let's start at the bottom. Simon Dawkins, my God. Whatever happened to Simon Dawkins? I think he'll be getting a new contract. There we go. Caden Jackson, 1.8 million. Ellis Harrison, 840,000. These are in euros. Sorry, I don't know how to convert the site. Gwion Edwards was the first to come, 750,000. Jordan Roberts on a free, and we will save the spate of people who came in at the end of the window. Trevor Chalobah on loan. Janoy Donasian on presumably the strangest deal that's ever been done in football that still no one understands and that appears to must be triggering some kind of payment if he ever plays 2 more games for us again or something. There's a real duff deal been done.
yeah, he'll be back on loan to Accrington next season. You know it, won't you?
There you go. We'll wait for Matthew Pennington. But Toto in Ciala, that looks undisclosed, but we would think.
I think it was a couple of million for the pair, wasn't it? Nolan
Yeah, and John Nolan, that's also
yeah.
undisclosed. I don't think I've missed any outreach. So, yes, no proven Championship players. None of them have even laced up a Championship boot. Missed out Teo Eden as well. So a whole mix of young loan players, League One and League Two players, and a gamble on Jordan Roberts. When you look at it now, how did we ever think it was going to work?
Yeah. Well, exactly right, and 1.8 million as well. I think if you convert it back, let's shave 20% off it or 10% off it, maybe. It's still 1.5 million plus for Caden Jackson, who'd been in League Two.
How much was Buendia?
Oh, this is the worst thing, isn't it? And that's the thing. Looking at where we're doing business: Crawley, Bristol Rovers, Shrewsbury, Accrington. No offence to those clubs, but the season before we're doing deals with Rangers, and we're doing deals with Leicester and Derby. For where did Lawrence come from? It was Leicester, wasn't it? I'm trying to. Selena, Man City. Sorry, and yeah, I know that the budget has always been an issue at Ipswich, and we've always kind of been shopping in a different area to everyone else. But the likes of Norwich have just proven that you don't need to chuck stupid money to bring quality if you're willing to do the research or broaden your horizon. And we just didn't do that. We was like, oh, League One, I've got 10 players, I can get them in straight away. And even Harrison has had a mixed season and probably is one of a good prospect there. But 800 grand for Ellis Harrison. You're thinking, wow, what we got for that money, could we have spent that better?
Do you agree with me as well that there's a big mistake? I'm sure, and I really like Trevor Chalobah, and you're dealing with Chelsea here who've got this incredible crop of players you can loan out. I'm sure we could make up a team that if you had 2 experienced players out of Chelsea loanees that would finish in the top 3 in the Championship just out of Chelsea loanees. But do you agree with me that mixed model of spending that loan money on an attacking player where you can make a difference, that was actually a mistake, it being well, he was a centre back first and then a defensive, not even a playmaker, just a defensive central midfield?
I mean, he came good, didn't he? But he came into the team with no professional appearances at all. That is what we're talking about here. And I part of me wonders whether that deal was done by Bowman pre-Hurst, because to me it doesn't really fit the model of the Hurst type signing, because he's from Chelsea, he's probably a big earner, and I think Hurst kind of likes to have a good kind of parity across the wages and all that kind of stuff. And Chalobah might stick out maybe if I'm Hurst, but he got better for us. But you're right, yeah. If there's a loan fee and wages involved there, make it a player that's going to get you goals, because that's the difference at the Championship level, as we will find out to our cost throughout the season.
Here we go then. August the 4th. Here comes Tony Mowbray and League One winners. Yeah, Wigan didn't win it, did they? League One winners, Blackburn Rovers, with a settled team of League One players and a settled pattern of play, and Bradley Dack and Danny Graham up front. Chalobah, who you mentioned, who's had no professional experience, is put in Cole Skewes' position, and Cole Skewes is put forward. We get Danassian making his debut at centre back. We get Spence at right back. Flynn Downs starts. So three kind of stoppers really in midfield. Edwards, Harrison, Sears. So Edwards and Sears wide. It's a 2-2 draw, Rich. And what did we learn from this one? And what was your... I just thought it was an outlier. The first hint of Białkowski's huge fall off a cliff in form for the first Blackburn goal. I think Teo Eden saves us virtually in stoppage time. Opening impressions, especially after 4 minutes when we take the lead.
Well, that was it, wasn't it? It was a really lovely goal we scored. And Guion Edwards has a good game, to be fair, and that flick over the top and the run through and all that kind of stuff. Everyone's up for that, and you kind of think, brilliant. I remember I went with my old man, and we kind of look over to him and go, this is brilliant. This is the new era. This is exactly what we wanted. And then reality sets in, in a way that we'll see over the course of the next few games, about defending from set pieces. Absolutely shocking. Mistakes from Bart, defenders not knowing where to be, people getting in each other's ways, silly mistakes as well. This is the thing that will cost us in the coming weeks and months. But also there was this kind of lack of threat as well. We had a lot of ball around the 18-yard box.
Can I just come in on that? I was just going to say, I was just playing the two goals in my head. One was a fluky, it was a cross by Aiden that flies
Sears,
in.
Wasn't it?
And Aiden puts the second
for the
in.
goal, for the second goal, yeah.
Sorry, and the first goal is a great goal, but it's very low percentage. It's very low XG. It's you'll have that chance 100 times and score that one 8 times. It's not creating a really great chance. It's a deep cross and a brilliant header by Edwards arriving on the back post. I think you're totally right about the inability to create good... I know we scored 2 goals in that game, and that doesn't...
Well, the Eden goal is nowhere near on the XG-ometer either. It's a free kick that's 25 yards out that just happens to bounce all the way in, doesn't it? It's one of those those free kicks. But, going back to the pre-season results very quickly, we don't score more than 1 goal a pre-season. I said the number, 0.8 goals per game. There was just a suspicion, because we were playing pretty lowly opposition apart from West Ham.
So Kenlock scored against Barnet. And
I'm trying to remember.
Sears scored against Milton Keynes, and
did Harrison score against West Ham?
Harrison scored against West Ham, but
it's Crawley, Barnet, MK Dons, Braintree beat us 2-0. And we'd had issues with that in January as well. There's a run of, is it 4 or 5 games in January, or so the end of last season, where we don't score a single home goal. And you've taken goals out of the team. We've already talked about that, but we just didn't really have a pattern to score goals. The first goal, great as it was, until Swansea, you don't really see much like that again from us. No crossing or no one attacking the ball.
Is there a sense that Hurst thought, right, I'll set up all my training systems, the fitness will kick in. Bear in mind how Leeds started this season when we talk about fitness, the fitness will kick in, and then the chances will come. I think that was kind of the last thing on Hurst's checklist. It wasn't about where am I getting my goals, was it? It was I'll press high up the pitch, force the opposition into an error, and then I'll have quick players like Sears or Edwards or Jackson who can break through and take advantage of that. And we did that to an extent. I think the Norwich game we'll talk about is the point where that kind of plan was dismantled, and and the goals weren't coming from anywhere else. Get out.
Get out.
That plan's gone.
If you think you can't cut it.
Rich, did you go to Rotherham? Because I went on holiday at this
and
point.
Rotherham, and I haven't set this up either. I would say exactly the same thing about Rotherham. Lots of possession, lots of intent, but no guile or no one willing to kind of grasp the metal and try and score the goal. I think John Nolan has a chance from outside. There's a shout of a penalty, but we have sustained amounts of possession in their third.
Can we just dive in, Rich? 16 shots, 316 completed passes to Rotherham's 140. 149 in the attacking third, 17 take-ons, 26 crosses.
How many shots on target, Ben? How many shots on target?
3.
Out of 16?
Out of 16. No big chances.
And that's the story. That was the story. And you get that. Like, this happens all the time in the Championship, doesn't it? You dominate and then someone sucker punches you. We've seen that before. I think the problem was it's Rotherham, it's Warren versus Hurst again. That was the story. I think one of the Chuckle brothers had passed away. There's all kind of things to conspire against you, but we should have, with Waghorn or Salida in that team, we'd have scored 2 or 3 goals in that game, I'm pretty certain. And again, there's the story starting to develop of mistakes, lapses. I think it's another set piece they score from a corner.
Michael Smith from a free kick.
Yeah, from a knockdown, it just drops to him, and no goal scored.
And in this one, again, this new pattern of we're basically doing our pre-season during August and trying stuff out. So Donasian's now at right back, and Ciala makes his debut, having signed 2 days before or something. Skews is now alongside Chalobah in a slightly different system. Nolan makes his debut. Ward is playing down the left-hand side.
Ward, you can still find him. Yeah. Nolan, quickly on Nolan and Ciala. So these were 2 players that Hurst had earmarked pretty early on to sign. That was a really embattled, really fractious transfer dealing as well, and they were frozen out of the club, weren't they? They weren't training at all with the first team, I think. So they come in having done no pre-season, so straight into the first team.
So there we go. And then off we go to Exeter in what Mick McCarthy described.
We don't care about the League Cup. We've never cared about the League Cup. What does it matter?
As the hardest game to win, because you have to rest your players and you've only just started. But this was quite something where we started to sense, oh my God, what's happening here? So away we go, and it's a 1-1 draw, and Caden Jackson actually gets off the mark. He hasn't played in either of the games yet. The game goes to penalties. You would argue another mistake from Bialkowski for the Exeter goal, and
another set piece. Yeah.
We lose on penalties. Okay, we always get knocked out of the League Cup, but Paul Hurst is absolutely furious after the game. Doesn't go away and calm down, goes straight away. And this is Steve Pearce. This is the club interview, and then they actually put it out as well. And I don't remember the direct quotes, but we all know that Hurst basically buried the performance and the players that played in it and went very, very tough love on a group of players that were used to, frankly, being cuddled and, having their ego stroked by Mick McCarthy for 5 years. Exactly. You're either pissing in from the outside or out from the inside. It was them against us. And Harry always says very, very well that he kept the dressing room and he lost everybody else. Mick was good at that. But this was a massive error of judgment by Hurst, wasn't it?
In hindsight. So
fine,
again, I'm going to again hold my hands up. This is what I know. You need to get rid of me, Ben. I can't make the calls. I don't see stuff right. I was okay with his post-match because we just lost to Exeter, we just lost to Rotherham, no wins yet, and there was a sense that there was a bit of a culture of comfortableness around the club. There's my mate who's a Wolves fan said, and I'm sure I've said this before, a few things will happen at the end with Mick. He'll have his favourites, they will be undroppable, and it will end fractiously and everyone will hate each other. But he did say that Mick will have his favourites. And
have you just spoiled the end of Game of Thrones?
Sorry, yeah. Mick ends up on the Iron Throne. I don't know how. Fuck you, dragons. Whoops. But I forgot what I was going to say. But
the Iron Bank is actually the national media, yeah, and Mick's going to come across on a Barnsley dragon.
I need to mock this up as a video somehow.
Yes, you do.
Because he's more of a White Walker in his appearance.
I want to see Mick McCarthy on the Iron Throne. Carry on.
What was I saying about Hurst, wasn't it? Yeah, something. Yeah,
Oh
someone.
dear.
Yeah, so Hurst. The press conference to me sort of talks about it's too comfortable, and some people need a bit of a rocket up their arse because this isn't good enough. And to be honest, I was one of those people that thought, do you know what? Good on you. Let's try this approach because we've kind of done the nicely, kind of us against the world thing with Mick, and we finished 12th, but we were listing a little bit, and the previous season was a bit crap as well. So I thought, let's shake stuff up and let's see how it works out. And it happened to work out pretty poorly for him. But at the time, I was kind of on board with it as a strategy. Yeah, I'm going to hold my hands up there.
Yeah, I sat on the fence at that point. I have to say, and thought, let's not pass judgment on this. Let's see this out because I wasn't in the country. I wasn't at the game. So on we go to Aston Villa, who pumped us 4-0 at Portman Road at the end of the previous season, and lo and behold, we had a man sent off in that game. Pretty similar in terms of lineup. Teo Eden comes in and plays in the three off the front in place of Grant Ward, who was the guy sent off against Villa. And this is actually a good performance. Some people would argue that you caught Steve Bruce just as the wheels are falling off.
His
time.
kind of just chuck the best players into the 11 and hope they can figure it out. Grealish and McGinn and all that.
But yeah, speaking.
It was a rally, wasn't it? It was a better performance. Eden sending off doesn't help us, but it's back to the wall.
Let me bring that. Look, Grealish, Kodja, McGinn, Adoma all played yesterday. El Mohammadi, Tuan Zabi all played yesterday and won a playoff semi-final. So nice goal. McGinn sets up Kodja. Chalobah gets an equaliser. The preview show is now going, and Harry's told everyone that Nyland's rubbish. He comes out and
he didn't play yesterday. Yep.
Still find him here. Chalobah spins and sticks the ball in, and then Teo Eden kind of naively gets 2 quick yellows and gets a red card. But it's a very strong performance to not lose that game against against Steve Bruce, where they're not exactly committing men forward 10 to the dozen. But I was encouraged after that performance.
Yeah, same. And I guess Hurst would say, well, that's the reaction that I was looking for after I came out and slagged everyone off their Exeter. And I think everyone was starting to waver a little bit after the few defeats. I think this got Hurst back on, well, people got back on side with Hurst a little bit after this one.
Off we go to Derby. And this was very typical of Hurst's era in an away game where it was all okay and it was kind of looking all right if we had then the threat to go on and do something in the game. Again, the team's reasonably settled. Ward is back in. Donasian is still in at right back. And we get into the second half, and I remember the Ledley goal again. A corner gets half cleared, and again the alarm bells are going off. Lawrence hits a pretty decent free kick, but it's through Bielkowski's hands and into the net. And the 3 times Player of the Year is, we expect him to catch that, let alone save it. And we start to see this nasty pattern of going away from home, half puff, lose.
Yep. And can concede first, and the game is over as well. So this is the first of these kind of 2-0 results that a drumbeat throughout the season. And the other thing I drew out of this game more than any of the others as well is I think we went to a 1 up front possibly, and how isolated the striker was. I remember Jordan Roberts came off the bench, didn't he? I think second half,
played down the wing,
ran around lots, but basically it was on his own. It was like everyone else was in our half. And I think this was the template for a lot of 2-0 defeats that follow for the rest of the season.
I think you might be right, actually, because this stat starts to appear that was on the side of who scored literally every week when you went on there in Championship. Ipswich have conceded 2 or more goals in their last 3 away games, 5 away games, 7 away games, and it went up to something like 12 or 13 away games, which is, if you add in international breaks, 24 or 25 weeks worth of season, isn't it, where you conceding 2 goals every away game. I think as well, Rich, when you talk about sliding doors and your Hurst and whatnot, this week it's a 3-game week where he does keep a reasonably settled team, and in 2 of the games he's going to get red cards and he's going to get no wins. Do you know what I mean? It's all about that win just never coming for Hurst before he ripped it up and went off. So off we go to Sheffield Wednesday, and yeah, the gods are really.
You were there for this one, weren't you?
Yeah, I was back. I was at this
one. Better performance, I seem to recall. I listened to this on the radio, and again, defence. The 2 goals as well, shockers.
Don't. So Teo Eden comes in and plays in centre midfield, and Skuse is not around, and you've kind of, as an Ipswich fan, been wondering what is the future like without Skuse. He seems to have been there forever. How is this transition going to be made? And there was some encouragement there. The back 4-5 is settled, and really hardly any Mick players in this team. Knudsen, Chambers, and Białkowski, the only 3. And again, just set play. Bannon corner, Zhao on the back page. I think Chalobah lost him. Yeah. And Ciala equalises on 40 minutes. And again, you're going into the second half in the game, huffing, puffing. And here comes the Ciala through Foresty area. And okay, we did this to death at the time. Red card or no red card, what happens next is it's just awful. So the free kick goes in, they win a corner. Białkowski, I really like this guy. I don't want to come on here. I'm just telling you the facts of how bad he was at the start of the season. Completely flapping, and it goes loose. And Zhao, before Hurst even got time to make the substitution to sort out after the red card, they're 2-1 down. It's another set play, and I guess if you're Paul Hurst, you're starting to think, why is everything that could possibly go wrong going wrong? And in Hurst's defence, Rich, can he do anything about Nsiala diving in on Forestieri? Can he do, whether you think it's a red card or not, he gave the referee a decision to make.
Yeah.
And can he do anything about just the failings of his goalkeeper and the team to set up from set plays over and again?
Well, and I think this is the one bit that is in his gift to do something about. So, and next game will, there's a big moment in the season as well in terms of personnel and choices. But the defending for set pieces, we've called it out pretty much every single game so far. That was something that Mick was really hot on. You know exactly where to be. You are a unit. Bart's territory is here. Your territory is there.
Rich, Joe Garner spearheading everything away.
Exactly right. Waghorn used to come back and do that kind of stuff as well. That was what we were really. We rarely conceded consistently from set pieces. If you score a good set piece against us, fair enough. But these are crap goals that we are conceding from set pieces. These are people losing there who they're supposed to be marking. It's people coming out. Bart comes out, doesn't know where to be. Someone gets in the way. There's a lot of these goals, and I think that's the one kind of in Diamond and Hurst's time is that defence was never addressed. He just moved people around.
And other than the Villa game, Rich, Blackburn's first goal was Bart flapping. Rotherham's was a free kick. Exeter's was a free kick. Villa's was a good goal. One of Derby's... Oh, no, the first Derby goal was a half-cleared corner, and the second was a free kick. Both Sheffield Wednesday goals were... It's virtually every goal other than Jonathan Codger's goal that we conceded was...
And we're getting nervous about it, aren't we? And teams know, right, you stick a set piece on Ipswich's defence, the 6-yard box, they'll
can you imagine being Barry Bannon as well? He's like, oh, boys, I've got this today.
Just win the corners.
Win me some corners. So we go into the end of August and the transfer window closing, and there's a sense of some okay performances and some bad luck, some, the red cards and the inability to... I mean, how unlucky can you be if you don't win any of your games? But you take my point. Some things that Hurst could point
terrible,
to.
Were we?
Yeah.
The biggest defeat was the 2-0 to Derby, so no one smashed us yet. And we can't keep clean sheets, but we can't score goals.
Even a podcaster who's never been in a football dressing room can say, oh, if we could just sort that set play thing out, or if we just didn't dive into tackles and get red cards, which is not, I don't have to be Alex Ferguson to to be able to point that out, do I? For those people who like to have a pop at us podcasters for just being fans, we are just fans, and we can see this. So we then get this spate of signings, and there's rumblings that Hurst maybe does or doesn't want some of these players. So in come, let me get this right, Jordan Graham, on loan from Wolves, who's kind of a winger. I've sort of erased him from my memory. Matthew Pennington, who'd played for Leeds, the previous season on loan from Everton. John Walters, former Ipswich player, obviously had then played a few hundred Premier League games since he left Ipswich. So probably, in terms of pedigree, the best player in the squad, the only player other than Sears for 10 minutes or whatever to touch a Premier League pitch ever. And was there another one, Rich? Am I missing anyone out?
I think those were the main ones.
Yeah, that's it. So another little splurge of players, and we go into this game. I don't really want to talk about it because it's so painful. Norwich are struggling. The fans are starting to question the Farker and Webber experiment. Yeah. Ipswich are trying to build something in terms of what Hurst is trying to do. And here we see one team stick with their plan and one team completely rip it up. And Ipswich go 4-4-2. Pennington makes his debut. We're starting the goalie in a minute. Graham makes his debut. Walters, can't call it a debut, but makes his return. It's going to be a bit more direct. Oh, and by the way, you're not playing Bart. Apparently not told before the Sunday.
A couple of hours beforehand, I think that was. Yeah.
A couple of hours beforehand. This is the key, isn't it? This is Hurst signing his own sacking warrant, or however you want to word it. Exactly. This is where he diverts away from something that possibly, if he stuck to, could the results have been any worse? If he'd stuck to it, would we be having a very different podcast now? This is the moment, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and this is the question we got in the preview show quite a lot towards the end of the season, particularly as Lambert's spoiler alert for the next season review pods that we do. The results don't get much better. And people sort of say, well, should we have given Hurst a bit longer? I think this game is the reason why we shouldn't have, because after this game as well, we joked about it. I think Joe's the one who comes up with Guinevere or whatever. And that's the issue, isn't it? You've got something settled. Walters, I don't think, is a Hurst signing, by the way. I think Evans is behind that one. Evans is on the phone, I think, to Walters and trying to encourage him to come down and all that stuff. And it just unsettles everything. And Hurst kind of goes into damage limitation or disaster recovery mode after this, because he gets a 1-1 draw. It's a fairly solid performance.
But it's Rich, it's up and at 'em, blood and guts performance. It's nothing like what he'd been trying in the previous games. 18 shots, 6 on target, 1 big chance against Norwich's 2 on target, and one big chance there. Norwich out passes, but in the attacking third, we're up on it. More crosses, more tackles, more interceptions, less fouls. Should have won.
And who knows what that would have done to Norwich and Farker as well, by the way. Sorry. But yeah, it's a really difficult one, this one, because Gherkin wasn't a story. So in terms of the Bart versus Gherkin debate, Hurst has kind of won that one, because we're not talking about conceding from set pieces. Walters comes in, does really well, has a really good game. We haven't lost to Norwich. We've got a really terrible record against Norwich. Hurst comes out and gives it the big one about, this is important to the fans. We don't lose, we show up. They come back at it in the second half. And there is so much right in this match, but it's not sustainable right, if you get what I mean. It's shuffling the pack unnecessarily, it's rotating key players, it's treating players who have been 3 times player of the season.
Very short term, isn't it?
Exactly right. And that short-termism is what continues for the rest of his tenure after this. And that is, you can't come back from that, unfortunately.
So we go to the international break, and everyone says, "Oh, Hurst didn't get a pre-season. This guy didn't get a pre-season." We're a bit unlucky with a couple of red cards, and we've got 2 weeks. We're going to practice set plays. We're going to really sort the fitness, do, and off we go to Hull. And we all know about Jared Bowen because he scored in the horrible quote toxic Mick Mick team talk on the pitch game against Hull. What was that, Barnsley? Which
No,
game?
it was
No,
Hull.
it was Hull, wasn't it?
It was Hull. 3-0, was it? I think.
And yeah, this is just a horrible performance.
Yeah.
A really bad one. So Bowen scores after 4 minutes. Irvine scores after 89, but it wasn't like they, picked us off. Hull a lot better than Ipswich, and again, it's a slightly different system. Graham's in there. Back four seems similar. Gherkin retains his place. John Walters is up front with just a chasm between
Isolated. Yep.
him and the midfield. And all of a sudden, because John Walters is a big muscly bloke, the ball is going a little bit more direct. What on earth happened in the 2 weeks in between the Norwich game and the Hull game?
That's what we asked ourselves, didn't we? I think on the flagship show afterwards. I mean, it was a crap game as well, and I've said before, this is the moment where I've kind of been giving Hurst the benefit of the doubt on a lot of stuff, and after this one, it was right. I'm worried now, and a lot of people have kind of got there before me, but this was the game because Hull. Let's not forget, Hull were down the bottom with us. Hull had a really terrible start season, and then Nigel Atkins then gets them on this run up the table that gets them near the playoffs for quite a while. Hull were no good at that point, and we made them look pretty safe and it was a pretty straightforward win for them. And but again, Gherkin's not the story in this one, is it? No. There's mistakes from Downs and
that's right, yeah.
Some stuff from Spence.
Oh, Spence for the second goal, goodness me. Yeah, so 2 individual mistakes.
Mistakes.
Yeah. A team that's not at the bottom is Brentford. Dean Smith is still there. They were right near the top of the table at this point. Started really, really well, and they come to Portman Road, and we know what Brentford are like in terms of keeping the ball and such and such. And this is where I remember our famed WhatsApp group. I was driving down the A12 to get to the game, and the team comes through, and we're now starting to go, right, what? How many fullbacks? What is... I can't, we watch Ipswich every week. We're very nerdy about this. And when none of the 7 or 8 of us can, I think Stuart Watson figured it out. He must have had some information and managed to figure it out. But he was the only one that got it. So he goes to 3 at the back. Knudson's going to play centre back. Danassian, who's played centre back and right back, is going to play left wing back. Spencer's going to play right wing back. Skews and Chalobah, a centre midfielders. Grant Ward ends up pretty much sitting on Josh McEachran, which is actually quite clever. And 2 up front is Jackson and Harrison for the first time. Edwards out, Nolan out, and Ciala out. It's not a bad performance, actually.
Maybe 2 halves, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, no, actually, you're right. First half, I was very jittery and thinking, yeah, Brentford 358 completed passes to our 173, 14 efforts, 6 on target. But it's a good fight back in the second half, and he does ditch the 3-5-2, doesn't he?
Half time, last 45 minutes.
Nice header by Caden Jackson, but this is starting to unravel now, particularly with the 3 different systems in 3 different games, Rich, and 2 different halves.
Yep, and I don't know whether I know it's the next match for us, so I'll save my thought on what's going to come on that one. But it first half was dire, wasn't it? Really bad. And
Brentford were good.
Brentford, we know that, don't we? You don't need to help them out. That was the trouble. But is this the kind of players? I think this is where the senior players who've been around before under Mick and are used to fairly stable systems are starting to think, man, I don't know whether this guy knows what he's doing. I don't know whether that kind of thought is starting to creep into people's heads now.
And of course, the all-time greats are there after the sad passing of Kevin Beattie. This is the game afterwards. All very emotive and not a good time. But don't worry, Rich, because this is the one. Because Bolton are terrible. They are rubbish. Rubbish, I tell you. Here come Bolton. we know now, sadly, we shouldn't joke about the complete mess that they've been in this whole season and off the pitch, which is kind of more important than any 0-0 draw. But through goes Caden Jackson in a foot race with Mark Wilson. It was Jackson, wasn't it, Rich?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, on what time was this red
It's
card?
like 15 minutes, I think. It was quite early on.
34 minutes.
34, sorry.
And just outside the box, Wilson pulls down Jackson. So now Ipswich, Hurst without a win and Hurst was very keen to always point out that matches last for 95 minutes, not 90 minutes. So we'll call it an entire hour against 10-man Bolton. How did they not win this, Rich?
It's the same story as Rotherham, I think. A lot of possession, a lot of intent, but no real clear-cut chances. I don't know if you've got the stats in front of you there.
9 shots, 2 on target, no big chances. 174 passes in the attacking third, 24 crosses.
And I think Bolton had the clearest cut chance as well near the end. I think we get into the last 10 minutes. I think Bolton have a cross that goes in front of 6-yard box, I think, and someone just needs to tap it in from what I recall. And that was the clearest cut chance. And yeah, there's this lack of goals. It's this lack of system that leads to goals that is going to be the problem for us. And, the sending off or the penalty, which would you rather? You'd obviously have the penalty, wouldn't you? Because he's right outside.
When you can't score, yeah.
And that is, again, the moment where people have kind of been won back from the second half of Brentford thinking, well, maybe there's a plan here and there's a strategy. We've got a bit more intensity about us. And you're against 10 men, as you say, for an hour. And you can't manufacture a really clear-cut chance. I think alarm bells start to ring.
So we now played 9 games. I think I've got that right.
First clean sheet, though, guys. So.
Oh, okay. There you go. I think we're still unbeaten at home at this point, aren't we?
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Drawn all the games,
so,
but
what are you complaining about?
The expectations are dropping and dropping off. We go to Birmingham, where and I think Birmingham started in a similar way to us, where they were drawing a lot of games, but they were obviously looked a lot more solid than we did. And we go to this game with very little expectations, and again, we managed to put 2 goals on the board with some low percentage chances. Again, it's a counter attack. Pennington plays Jackson, I think, away, slides it into Nolan, who swings it into the top corner.
Lovely
Brilliant
goal,
finish.
Yeah.
And then Pennington gets left for a corner and nods one in. It's 2-0 up at half time.
We know 2-0 is a dangerous score, though, man, don't we?
Stop it.
the most dangerous score.
I got quite annoyed with people using the term "threw away" a 2-goal lead, because under Paul Hurst, Ipswich never ever were 2 goals better than any team they ever played against in terms of my eye test. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, quick counter attack and score in a corner. No dominance here. And
it was a Mick performance.
Everybody is
first half,
saying at half time, get up to 60 minutes, and then keep this out. Obviously, Jutkovic on 48 gets behind Chambers, and then on 68. But looking at it, Rich, 22 shots to 7, 3 big chances to Birmingham, none to Ipswich. What I'm saying is the underlying stats in every one of these games, apart from I think the Rotherham one, are just not making good reading, despite the quote threw away the 2-goal lead thing. But nice to see Nolan get on the score sheet. Pennington gets himself sent off at the end as well.
Silly as well.
Is there anything good to take out of this, bearing in mind that the 2 goals were kind of scored on the counter and we didn't really play that much football at all?
Well, Birmingham, I can't remember. I think Birmingham's home record is pretty decent, or was
very good,
last season. And Gary Monk knows exactly what he's doing. Another team with off-field stuff and all that stuff. But none of us, I think, turned up to St Andrews expecting to see 2 goals scored and to be 2-0 up at half-time. So, you'd have taken an away point. If we'd been offered to us at the start, as Mick used to say, I wouldn't have got on the bus. But some of us live nearby, so I'd had to go. So, but. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with that performance, apart from, as you say, the fact that we were 2-0 up and it was like, oh man, do we stick or twist? And we just kind of, and they score after 46 minutes, don't they? They come out and score straight away. And I think that's what did for us. If you'd hold on for 10, 50 minutes longer, you never know. But I'm not going to read too much into that. Apart from, hey, it was good to score 2 goals. That's the first time. Have we done 2 goals yet? No, it's the first time we scored more than 2 goals, more than 1 goal in a game. So, well, apart from Blackburn, sorry.
Wow. The more we go through this conversation, I'd never thought about it like this. The lack of creative football and the inability to create big chances was just never in the plan, was it?
And at this point, we've lost John Walters as well. So John Walters goes off against Bolton, doesn't he?
That's the most Ipswich thing possible, isn't it?
Yeah. So timeline again, big injuries. These are starting to crop in. So we've dropped the stooping standings off after Birmingham. So Pennington's is the last one for a while, but we are starting to get injuries. And again, John Walters has been kind of pivotal to the way we played at Bolton. I think did he start or did he come off? I think he wasn't fit, was he? I think he came
on as a sub and then immediately pulls up. And
so the plan B that potentially Hurst had is gone now, and we don't know what plan A is anymore because we've kind of thrown it away.
Here comes Ipswich versus Middlesbrough. Don't answer this question, Rich. Paul Lambert was at this game. Who invited him? Don't answer that question. Let's move on to the game.
Just likes football.
Yeah. Just happened to call Stuart Taylor after the game. Don't know why that would have happened. Awful performance, dreadful performance against Middlesbrough. And as we said in the shows afterwards, thank God it was Tony Pulis in the dugout, not Daniel Farker, Chris Wilder, Marcelo Bielsa, or whoever who would keep attacking. Horrible uncoordinated press, and Besic marches through the middle and sticks it in.
Huge gaps weren't there, yeah.
Just awful mistake by Luke Chambers for the second goal. Trying to pass out of defence, gives it straight to Downing. And then thank you, Tony, for sitting back and taking a 2-0 there. 14 shots for Borough, 1 shot on target for Ipswich, and God forbid we didn't get outpassed by Borough because they literally don't like the ball. But obviously they just let us have the ball for the entire second half. And
the fact they scored 2 goals tells you how bad that is.
2 goals in
teams don't lose
16 minutes, Rich.
Yeah, so, and it was as soon as the first one went in, you kind of got the sense it was game over anyway. And I think that was live on Sky, possibly. It was definitely one of the red button games, obviously. But yeah, the fact that a Tony Pulis team could score 2 goals past any team tells you how bad they are, because they just need 1. That's all they need, just the 1.
And now the realisation that Ipswich Town, who never sack managers, could be doing modern football, getting rid of a manager after very few games. And it's all building up to the end of this international break and a game away at Swansea where he's gone if he loses this game. The press release is written for Sunday morning if he loses it, Rich. And off we go to Swansea and we win.
I just hear the words Harry from Bath in my head.
Yeah.
Bonkers, crazy, whatever he said, yeah.
Donatian opens the scoring on 8 minutes. Ollie McBurney then proceeds to miss by an inch about 8 clear chances for Swansea. Joe Rodden hits the bar in the second half. They do everything else but score. In the meantime, in a brilliant 4-minute period, Freddie Sears and Guion Edwards decide to turn into Salah and Mane for 4 minutes. And
championship,
yeah. Sears sets Edwards up with a brilliant counter-attack goal, and then nearly the other way around, but Van der Horn flicks it in. So you're 2-1 up. Ipswich survive. Then, of all things, Swansea pass the ball out from their own 6-yard box, and Selina obviously scores a brilliant goal.
Yeah.
And then Ipswich get a corner and score the winner. This bonkers game, Rich. 19 shots to Swansea, 2 big chances, 620 passes. Swansea complete in this game. Dan James is in Matthew Pennington's nightmares for the next 8 months. 206 passes in our attacking third, 18 take-ons, 36 crosses. this win was very lucky, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And the thing is, everyone knew it as well. I think I'm trying to recall back to the flagship. I'm sure you guys had questions like, could this be the start of something really good? He just needs to get that first win, didn't he? And then suddenly everything will go out, it will turn out all right. But we talked about this constantly, this lack of pattern, this lack of structure. So we fluked that big time. There was a corner that won the game. Swansea should have had 4 or 5. Graham Potter's doing all kinds of weird stuff to try and he's got like 50 midfielders on the pitch or
One
something
centre
like
back.
that. Doesn't matter, and we have just managed, they hit the post. I think they had some stuff off the line. It's just, as you say, crazy game, but it is an outlier, and this is the word this is a statistical anomaly. This shouldn't have happened, and what it does is it buys Hurst another 2 weeks of international break, doesn't it? And what might have been if we'd just seen that game for what it was, which is just a total crazy moment that is an isolated.
So weird, isn't it? All the goals we scored are either set plays or low percentage counter attacks, aren't they?
Similar goals to Blackburn, aren't they? Kind of.
Yeah, when you think back, Nsiala's header was a set play against Sheffield Wednesday, one from a corner here, the counter attack and the set play against Birmingham. Apart from the Brentford goal, that was a good goal. I remember Chalobah doing that. I can't remember how the Gwion Edwards goal came about against Norwich. I think that was a free kick into the box in the second phase, wasn't it?
Curls it into the corner with a deflection, doesn't he? But
I'm not seeing any 5-minute build-up of passing, getting up the pitch, penning a team back, and creating moments in the box of.
We don't work goalkeepers, do we? And I think that's the thing.
Yeah, that's well put. Yeah. And again, we go into this international break, and Evans has got his finger on the trigger, but does not go through with it, presumably because, he's earned himself some more games because we've got the first win now. But
and we're not a sacking club, are we, Ben? We've got good old Ipswich. We're not like Norwich. We don't pull the trigger when it's there, and we don't need the evidence to inform it. We can just we just hold on a little bit because it's lovely little Ipswich. We don't want to be don't want to be in the press. Don't want to be we're a sacking club. Well,
off we go to Saturday the 20th of October, and it's QPR at home. And here comes Steve McLaren with a plan. His plan is to hem us in and stick a couple of corners under the crossbar. Gherkin own goal. We know Luke Freeman's a good player, but come on, this is not the brain trust of England. This is McLaren going, well, that'll probably work. 2-0 at half time. Nsiala dives in on
stupid, yeah.
Was it Eze for the penalty? I
think so.
I don't remember. Hemed sticks it in. 2-0 half time.
Crap. I'm just trying to see.
Eze hits the bar in
the Dave diving in. This was rubbish. This was the worst performance, I think, of the Hurst era. Just because, again, Norwich to Hull, we're still early in the season. We're still kind of given the benefit of the doubt, the lack of pre-season. We've now had 2 international breaks. We're kind of into October, and we just didn't turn up. And this is where we start to ban the word winnable, isn't it? QPR was a winnable game. Definitely. They were still, this is kind of just as their little upturn in form is happening, but they're still not great. And we just didn't turn it up at all in this game.
I know we're sometimes Andre Dezelle apologists on the podcast. We want him to be as good as his dad. He gets thrown in against Luongo and Cameron in the kind of 10 position. Sears is up on his own. Edwards down one side, Ward down the other. Donassian's playing left back. Pennington's playing right back. There's no joined up thinking.
No.
I don't even see you write anything down.
It's all up there.
It's all up there. Where's Paul? Where's the report I asked you for? That was not the report that's going to be in tomorrow. Off we go to Leeds, who are up the top.
So I've got upstairs. Is it fine? What is it? It's a cross between upstairs, downstairs.
Not the TV show.
Telly addicts.
Off we go to Leeds for an absolute hiding. Roof has just come back. Hernandez is also just returned, so we didn't manage to get Leeds without those two. And yeah, very easy for Leeds. 18 shots to 3 in this game.
Dominant.
Absolutely dominant.
Only 2 though. So
yeah, well, that's Leeds though, isn't it? They don't hammer anyone except Derby and West Brom, do they? But Roof and Cooper again. Even the second Leeds goal, asleep for a set play, short corner, Hernandez out to Cooper.
nice
And of
finish though, wasn't it?
course, the centre back smashes it into the top
Yeah,
corner
top
with his
corner. Yeah,
left
as you
foot,
do.
Conor Hourihane
Top
style.
bins.
But
Yeah.
Hurst looks like it's done at this point.
We've got the photos, haven't we? We've got the kind of arms, him on his own on the touchline.
He knows it's done. He's
Because
not.
was Doig was Doig not
God.
allowed on the bench or something? Is he not on
Doig
the
has
bench?
basically already left or something, hasn't he?
Something like that, wasn't it?
What
Because it's
a mess.
Chris Hogg, I think, is on the sideline with him, and it started. This is dismantling around us, and I think the Blue Monday, much favoured Blue Monday WhatsApp group, the rumours are starting at half time, aren't they? That something is afoot, and it doesn't take long, does it? After that,
Wow. What was the Nathan Winder, was it? Who's caught on camera doing some very
the
David
dancing
Brent
in the warm up or
before
something.
the game in the warm up.
He's gone. You're losing your job. You're not losing your job. You're not.
And that's the end. And I don't know if the firing was made. I think, to let you in on something, I think I already made my Paul Hurst has been fired video, put it on YouTube, and literally was waiting to press publish. We knew it was all happening.
We got so I did. I took the day off because I stayed up in Leeds for the match and came home slowly but surely the next day because I was going to have a nice night out in Leeds and it was rubbish. And I was on the train at lunchtime, and I think that even the Lambert rumours were coming out before we'd got confirmation he was gone.
This is quite cleverly done, I guess, because they fudged the two announcements together. And who was it? It was the Sun or one of the nationals broke. Just
maybe the
happened to have that story ready to go before the Hurst sacking. So it was broken. Not that Paul Hurst was being sacked, but that Paul Hurst was being sacked and Paul Lambert would be taking over in 2 games' time or what have you. Just your feelings on that whole passage and this disastrous tenure for Hurst. When we go through it, we cite some individual errors, we cite some red cards, we cite some bad signings, players in.
Some iffy injuries and all that stuff.
But I think you hit the nail on the head earlier in the pod. We're talking about football. It's a football podcast, and Hurst never created any chances or scored any goals. Or there's a big in-game reason that is nothing to do with Mick McCarthy, Marcus Evans, whoever. The pattern of play for Hurst was never set up to score goals, apparently, or never got to the point where it could.
And it couldn't stop them either. And I think that's the thing that you kind of expect with, we talked about the huge raft of departures and signings. That's a factor. And the late start to pre-season is a factor. The change of philosophy potentially, the lack of imprinting that, and then changing that partway through the season. But it's fundamentals we're talking about. You expect a manager to come in who the team's struggling to score goals. Right, well, let's make sure we don't ship any out the other end. Let's at least get the 0-0s, the grotty 0-0s, and not lose games. And we couldn't even do that. And I think that's part of the problem is you've got no fundamental basis to build from. And that was Mick's model, wasn't it? When he came in and we were crap in that November and we're looking like we were going down, clean sheets, stop shipping goals. We didn't do that. We didn't have that basis to build on. So we were rubbish at the back and conceding crap goals, and we already couldn't score them. So what are you going to expect? What follows from that is nothing. That is, unless you can stop and go, right, let's just pause the season. We'll give us a month and we'll sort this out. You're not given that luxury. And I think everyone started to realise that we'd wasted pre-season. We'd made some really poor decisions in terms of transfers, but fundamentally, football-wise, tactically-wise, as you say, we just weren't there, and we never were there for the rest of the season. Paul Lambert comes in and tinkers a bit and tries to try some stuff out. It makes us a little bit more potent up the other end of the pitch, but we don't remove these crappy goals that we concede at the back. And I think that is the basis of any relegation team that you see in history. They can't stop conceding goals, and we just couldn't do that.
Well, I'm just playing in my head, Rich. How far am I am I going back? Oh, Hurst tears it up against Norwich. Players keep getting sent off. Exeter bailing the players out. Oh, we sold the wrong players. Oh, we didn't hire him quick enough. Oh, Mick walked out. Oh, we couldn't create any chances from January 2018. Oh, we were really quite lucky in the first 5 games of the previous season. Oh, we sold Daryl Murphy. Do you know what I mean? It just feels like whatever point anyone says we got crap, someone else will come back and pick something out that happened 6 months or 3 months before, and it's just it's. I know I said it was no one thing, and obviously there's people who'll say, "Oh well, 10 years ago, Marcus Evans bought the bought the club," and say,
"Well, I was going to go there myself." So there's two things. The one consistent throughout, the one thread that is consistent, apart from us who rock up every week and hope for the best, is the owner. And at this point in the season, I don't know when this moment of Yoda-like brilliance comes from Harry from Bath, but he said the words, "Owners relegate clubs." And you can chart that back potentially to his takeover, and we've done it in the sliding doors videos. There were some mistakes made there. But this kind of slow circling of the drain, you saw it with Villa in the Premier League a few years ago. Yeah. Sunderland as well, they circle for a while. Our circle around the drain is quite quick, but it's there. The signs are there, and I think Evans,
it's strange,
with a bit more knowledge, knows what he's doing.
Interesting to track it back, because obviously, up until Christmas 2014, you're second in the league or whatever. It's working at this point, so I think the tracking needs to start then. But obviously, just we get to this point where Paul Lambert is now hired, and it's just, well, what did I say? Christmas 2014. It's now 5 years of decline from second in the league at that point, and winning at Brentford and beating Borough 4-0. Was that in that month or whenever that happened? Lambert comes in and sits and watches the Millwall game in a flat cap with a scarf tied around his face.
Looking very unhappy, as you'd expect. Man, what have I said yes to?
Well, he's probably said yes to a £500,000 bonus if he keeps us up, and he's like, "Oh, that was a bad deal, that wasn't it? I should have gone for the wages, not the bonus." So Białkowski had actually come back in the previous game against Leeds, where we'd gone 4-4-2 and 2 up front and played Eden on the left wing, and whatever weird stuff happened there. Brian Klug is going to take charge of this one. 3-5-2 and brings in his youngsters. Loves Ward as a wing back, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was going to say that one.
Chalobah plays centre back against one of the best aerial teams in the division. Dazelle is in, Downs is in, Jackson and Sears. It's a horrible, rudderless performance. Obviously, we all know about the set plays and whatnot. Gregory sneaks one in cleverly on 26. Long throw in, I think, and Cooper sets Gregory up for another one. And then just this embarrassment of, who was it? Was it Chambers and Białkowski getting in each other's way? And then, of course, for the only time in his career, Ryan Leonard lobs it perfectly into the back of
a long cover Ipswich. Do your thoughts on this one, Ben? This to me, that was a Brian Klug team. That was his choices, his decisions there. Is that because Lambert doesn't know enough to be able to put some imprint on the selections there, and we just accept it's a write-off game? Because Millwall are not the team from last season. They beat us twice this season.
It's like we wrote off a lot of games, Rich, doesn't it?
But it feels to me like a total wasted opportunity for Lambert to learn anything. It's like, well, go on, Brian, you name the team. I'll just watch from the sidelines, and I'll take from that what I will. We weren't going to start with the three centre backs, were we? I don't think Ward was ever going to be a right back or a right wing back. It just felt like a total wasted opportunity, and we got what we deserved out, which was a thumping.
A lot of managers do that, don't they? I take your point. A lot of managers will say, look, there's no point me going in. I've been hired on Thursday afternoon, wasn't it? There's no point me going in and doing this. The players better than me. I'll start on Sunday morning was the words, wasn't it? And to be honest, I think, even though we knew it was going to happen, Lambert wasn't confirmed until, was it Saturday morning?
It was Saturday morning.
Something strange,
but
wasn't
official,
it?
wasn't it? It was kind of...
So I guess he just said to Evans, "Yeah, look, I'm happy to do this, but I'm not going to Millwall, and at least give me a week to try and do."
Not going to Millwall. You can say it. Keep saying it. Keep saying it. I'm not going to Millwall. I'm not going to Millwall.
I'll talk over you. I'm not driving a mini metro. Yeah, so I think that was it.
Makes
And
sense.
I mean,
We needed him to do a Steve McLaren and go downstairs at half time, and we end up with a 4-4 draw or something. That's what we wanted.
Yeah, because that never happens, does it? Yeah. No, I guess if he then beats Preston and draws at Reading and takes 4 points from the first 2 games instead of 2, you say, okay, great, off we go. But yeah, considering what's happened since, you think every second counted. Although if you subscribe to this theory, and I know some people don't, some people fiercely say no, Lambert should have done better. But if you subscribe to the theory that 4 years since Brentford away of damage had been done and accruing, and Mick was kind of plastering everything together and just keeping the ship afloat, then
you can't turn it around quickly, I guess.
Yeah. But we'll cover that in the next 2 joyous.
Are you excited, everyone?
Yeah, joyous parts of the season review. So that's the first 16 games. We'll do this next weekend, and we'll figure out who's going to come on for the next 2. So feel free to tweet us if you've got any points or anything on what we have said. Any closing thoughts on that first 16, Rich? And
just that we it's in the timeline video, which is brilliant and out there, and enjoy that. Enjoy that. After Leeds, we are bottom of the league. We stay there. Oh, spoiler alert. Oh, no, I won't say it. But we're bottom of the league for the rest of the season now, guys. So yeah, that sets the tone.
Ouch.
Sorry.
There we go. Thank you everybody for listening. You can follow Rich. What's your at Ipswich?
Ipswich, yeah.
Follow Rich on Twitter. Always a good follow, and some more videos going to be coming out there. Some content from Rich and Harry will be happening in the summer, so we'll figure that out in a couple of weeks when all the playoffs and such are over. We'll do another 2 shows going through this. We'll see what the listenership is like, see if it drops off like Ipswich's season, but we feel we should go through and just wrap everything up, and then we'll do some bits and bobsies in the summer as and when some players come in and out, and some stuff, hopefully as much stability happens as possible over the summer. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back next week. Say goodbye, Rich.
Bye, everyone.
And it's goodbye from me.
Even better, back to Stewart. Oh, he turns the defender sweetly round the goalkeeper and scores a magnificent goal at the top